Do you know the difference between assets and liabilities? If you can't answer this simple question, this video is for you. Did you know that the smallest portion of the rich's income is spent on luxury? Unlike what many think, the rich invest in assets, the poor only deal with expenses, and the middle class acquires liabilities, believing they are assets. This is a passage from one of the most recognized books in the history of personal finance, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. So, listen carefully to what I have to say. What you are acquiring is probably leading you to poverty or wealth. If you invest more in assets than in liabilities, you are likely to have more prosperity in the future. On the other hand, if you acquire more liabilities, you are on the path to poverty and financial servitude without being aware of it. But what are assets? What are liabilities? What is the difference between them? Pay close attention, because I'm going to present a different concept of assets and liabilities. This concept, which I'm about to present, differs from the traditional accounting concept of assets and liabilities. It was established by Robert Kiyosaki to explain a fundamental principle of personal finance. If you've made it this far, it's a sign that you are determined to change your life, a sign that you're tired of working just to survive and pay bills. By now, the vast majority of people have already abandoned the video. It's okay. Wealth is for the few, and if you are part of that minority, leave your subscription. Make our content reach hardworking and dreamy people like you. And to prove that you're tuned in to the video, comment like this: I will be rich and buy more assets. Just comment this: I will be rich and buy more assets. When I see this comment, I will give a heart, because I know you will succeed in everything you do in life. In summary, according to Kiyosaki, an asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, while a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that. Assets generate more money, liabilities take money out of your pocket. Note that by this definition, you can acquire things that generate money for you. However, you can also acquire things that take money out of your pocket. As you might imagine, if you acquire more things that take money out of your pocket, the tendency is to have less and less money. This concept of assets and liabilities is extremely simple but powerful. Without exaggeration, understanding and applying this concept will define your financial future. Poverty or wealth arise from the understanding and application of this idea in your personal life. As I mentioned at the beginning, the rich invest in assets, the less affluent only deal with expenses, and the middle class acquires liabilities, believing they are assets. So, from now on, I'll make clear the difference between assets and liabilities through practical examples. Is a vehicle an asset or a liability? To find out if it's an asset or a liability, go back to the definition we mentioned. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, and a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Based on this definition, we can say that unless you work as a driver, cars do not put money in your pocket. On the contrary, they take money out of your pocket. When you acquire one, you will have expenses for maintenance, fuel, taxes, fines, depreciation, and many others. And if you have expenses, money will come out of your pocket. Therefore, the car is a liability. Are stocks of companies traded on the stock exchange assets or liabilities? To be direct and objective, stocks can generate dividends or be sold in the future with capital appreciation. Therefore, they tend to put money in your pocket, so they are assets. Own house. Is the property you acquire an asset or a liability? I'll tell you right away. This is the most controversial example there is. Therefore, I ask you to listen to me attentively until the end, and only then draw your own conclusions to reach a true verdict. To reach a true verdict, ask yourself a question. Does the house you buy to live in put money in your pocket or not? When you bought your house, did you have more expenses and debts or more money in your pocket? Note that in general, the property we buy to live in, to be our home, does not put money in our pocket. On the contrary, it takes money out of our pocket. After all, we start having expenses with maintenance, taxes, renovations, among others. But perhaps you're wondering, my house is an asset because it appreciated a lot since I bought it. I answer, yes, it may have appreciated. But will you sell it to buy another one that costs less and thus put money in your pocket? If the answer is no, then I'm sorry to say, your house is not an asset. It is a liability because it does not put money in your pocket. It takes money out of your pocket. Perhaps you're still wondering, well, when I bought my house, I stopped paying rent, stopped paying the rent, which is money that doesn't come back, and started paying the installment of my house. Okay, you now pay the installment of the property, which in the future, when paid off, will be entirely yours. Such thinking makes sense. However, this does not mean that the property will be putting money in your pocket, because it will not generate money for you. On the contrary, the installment will be taking money out of your pocket for as long as the financing lasts. See the fact. Financed property is not like living in your parents' house or in a house inherited. In financing, the money comes out of your pocket, and if you don't intend to rent or sell at a profit in the future, no money will enter your pocket, only exit. Therefore, this is not an investment. However, you may still be wondering, as I acquired my own house, I don't pay rent, so I save the money I would be spending on rent. Therefore, money is entering my pocket, so my house is an asset. This idea is a half-truth. Yes, those who own their own home do not pay rent, but in a way, they continue to pay, in quotes, a rent called opportunity cost. Follow me, and you will understand what I'm saying, and I'll tell you up front, it's not nonsense. What has been said is a fact, it's numbers. Let's suppose that your house is valued at $500,000. Well, $500,000 invested in financial applications, such as real estate investment funds, can yield approximately $3,000 per month. And the most interesting thing is that you can rent a house that costs the same $500,000 for about $1,500. Yes, in each region these numbers may change. Rental values differ depending on the region of the country. However, note that I'm not pushing the envelope with these numbers. In this example, I'm considering that investments in real estate investment funds will be yielding 0.6% per month, which is entirely within the current reality. In fact, there are several applications in this modality that yield much more than 0.6% per month. Similarly, I'm considering that the rental value is 0.3% of the property value, and this is a common percentage in various regions of the country. Do not deceive yourself. If you own a house, one way or another, you are still taking money out of your pocket, even if it's yours. You withdraw money from your pocket due to the opportunity cost, because if you were investing the appraised value of your house, you could rent, and still, in many cases, have money left over. In some cases, you could have enough money to rent up to 2 houses of the same standard. Let it be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy your house. I'm not saying you shouldn't own your own home. I'm just opening your eyes so you don't fool yourself into believing that owning a house is an investment. A house to live in is not an investment because it does not put money in your pocket. Another caveat here, I'm classifying the property you buy to live in as a liability. If you buy an apartment, a lot, or a house with the intention of selling or renting it out, it's an asset because the expectation is that it will put money in your pocket. That said, I believe this concept of assets and liabilities is clear, and here comes another crucial point. Are you buying more assets or liabilities? Are you acquiring more things that put money in your pocket, or have you been buying only things that take money out of your pocket? Are you buying more shares of good companies, units of real estate investment funds, and financial instruments like Treasury Direct, LCIs, and CDBs? Or are you spending more on trendy clothes and electronics? Are you spending more on acquiring properties for rental or sale? Or are you spending more on constantly changing your car? Do this sincere self-analysis and see if you're spending more on assets or liabilities. If you're spending more on liabilities, your expenses will always increase, and the reason you already know, liabilities always take money out of our pocket. Anyone who has 2 or 3 cars knows well what I'm saying. After all, cars always incur expenses. Expenses for maintenance, taxes, insurance, and so on. The saddest part is that your salary won't always increase at the same rate as your expenses. Those who buy more liabilities than assets tend to always be slaves to work, where they'll always have to work more, do overtime, extra jobs, or other things, so their income keeps up with their expenses. In this way, those who buy many liabilities fall into the so-called rat race, always having to work more to cover their high standard of living. Of course, the consumerist culture that exists in our society leads us to always buy more and more liabilities, but it's important to remember the warning that Christ made to be on guard against all kinds of greed, for life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. It's important to remember the question asked in the book of Isaiah. Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Finally, it makes total sense to recall Robert Kiyosaki's quote, "The rich invest in assets, the poor only deal with expenses, and the middle class acquires liabilities, believing they are assets." Can you understand now? The poor buy expensive things, even without having the necessary money, thinking it's a habit of rich people. The rich spend on assets, things that will give them some financial return, only spending on luxury when they have money left over for it. Rich people always have a lot of money left over because most of their income and expenses are from assets and not liabilities. Lower middle-class people often spend what they don't have, often to show off, buying branded items, iPhones, throwing parties to pay for everything in installments later, getting into debt and deluding themselves into thinking they are rich. If you've made it this far, prove that you're persistent. Comment like this: I stayed until the end. Just comment that I stayed until the end. And that's already a strong sign that you're dedicated and deserve all the success in life. Now further enhance your knowledge and watch another video from our channel. Big hug and success.